for so long, Emoni Bates was expected to go play for Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans. About a couple of months ago, he withdrew that commitment and now ultimately commits to Penny Hardaway and Memphis. What do you think went wrong there? What do you make of that whole situation?
I don't know that anything necessarily went wrong. It's just, these kind of things happen in recruiting these days where a player commits really early. And Emoni Bates is beyond special. He's a great prospect, but he's not, he not only committed really early to Michigan State, he's reclassified. And so he's going to be eligible to play, and I think is enrolled already at Memphis. So he wasn't expected to play next year. It was supposed to be, 2 years from now. So it's just one of those things as part of recruiting. I'm sure there are a lot of factors that went into it. But, when guys commit really early now, I don't think coaches really rely on it like they used to because, some players like to be re-recruited. They change their minds. It's just an odd system where you can, where somebody commits 2-3 years before they're ready to step on campus.
Jay, Braylon here, man. Good to see you. I actually rode the bus back from the ESPY's golf outing with you back in 2008 with my manager Hayes, and you and him, because he played at Michigan, and you and him had some good conversation, if you remember that. Always remember you being a great individual, man, and it's great talking to you. I just had one question. With Emoni Bates, why was Michigan never an option? You look at what Juan Howard is doing there. You look at what the program and how they revamped. And I would take Michigan actually over Michigan State in the past 8 years in terms of consistency. Why was Michigan not on his list?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Braylon. It's a good call that Michigan has been a great option and is one. I don't know that I would say that over the last 8 years they've been better than Michigan State. I don't think that's the case.
I'm a Michigan guy, my bad.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. I'm good with that. But just objectively, I didn't go to either place. But it's just part of recruiting, and some players like certain coaches, certain programs, all that. Juan has done an extraordinary job in a very short period of time. But Braylon, that's part of the interesting part of this with Emoni Bates is he committed to Michigan State. I think at the time or just before Juwan Howard had gotten to Michigan, so that's how long ago he ultimately committed, and he might have been like 15 years old, which is really unusual.
Talking to Jay Bilas now, ESPN analyst. Jay, I wanted to ask you about Juwan Howard because surprise to some, maybe a surprise to many. #1 recruiting class, Final Four. I mean, what this guy has done after John Beilein, in my opinion, is nothing short of spectacular. I consider him one of, if not the best coach right now in college basketball. He's the total package. People want to play for him. What impact do you think he has had at Michigan? And then you see guys at, other Penny Hardaway at Memphis. I mean, this is a trend now where guys are coming back to their former schools and really making an impact.
Yeah, I think it's great. And Juwan is not only an outstanding coach, he's a great person. And that certainly comes through and a fantastic role model. I think one of the things I'm most pleased about in seeing some of what's going on is it's breaking this ridiculous stereotype that we've had for years that there's somehow college coaches can't win the NBA. When the truth is most coaches in NBA history started in college. But when you've seen coaches over the last 10 years that have gone from college into the NBA, they've gotten better jobs and they've done better as a result of it. And then we've also seen some NBA coaches, or at least coaches that started the NBA, go to college, and they've done a really good job. So no coach is pegged into a certain level of play. We've seen that in the NFL. And look, I get it. When you're working in the NFL, it's smart to make it seem like, only you and a few others can handle it. You don't want to have that competition of coaches coming in, but it's really about the job you get, not about the your capabilities. A lot of these coaches are incredibly capable at any level, and do adjustments need to be made, certainly. but it's been proven now that you can cross over just fine. There's not a problem.
Jay, if I could bounce around a little bit as well, I want to get into some college football too, because I saw this on your Twitter. I thought it was pretty remarkable. 4 decades after Dennis Green became the first black head coach of a Power 5 conference, we still struggle in that respect. And the stat within that article that really captured me was that only 4 programs have hired back-to-back black head coaches: Northwestern, Stanford, Vandy, and Colorado. Why do you think this continues to be a problem, not only in college football, but college basketball? It seems to be getting better, but college football for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not a priority. I think it's pretty clear that college is way behind in its hiring practices relative to the NBA and the NFL. And the stunning thing about that is these institutions of higher learning talk a good game about diversity, about doing the right thing, about this isn't a business and all these things. And yet their diversity hiring practices are horrible. And I think you can look back just to this last year about the gender inequity between the men's and women's NCAA basketball tournaments. The NCAA, and by the NCAA I mean all the member institutions as well as the office in Indianapolis, they talk a really good game, but the truth is they don't walk the talk, and it strains the mind that in 2021 we are still going through this battle and having to discuss it without any meaningful change having taken place. I think the cop-out is to say, well, these are individual decisions that are being made. Bull. I mean, there's a collective here. And you see all these institutions out there beating the drum on player compensation, but nobody's talking about these other really important issues. They would rather not discuss it. And I think for all these colleges that are supposed to be marketplaces of ideas, and these Ivy towered institutions of higher learning, for them not to address this more straightforwardly, I think enters into the realm of shameful, frankly.
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to call people out, and be honest and genuine about that. Really appreciate that. I want to jump back into the Penny Hardaway down in Memphis, as well as Juan in Ann Arbor. Will we see this thing? Ryan and I talked about this off air. Will we see these type of players, former players that become coaches at their institutions or maybe other places, start to push out the older coaches, and over time, maybe in a decade or 20 years, will it always be like that at every school, or will it still be a mix?
Yeah, it's a good question, Braylon. I think it'll probably always be a mix. I like the trend of coaches going back to where they played. I think it's a pretty cool thing. I don't think we're always going to see that. You've seen coaches establish a great brand and relationship with universities that they had no relationship with before that. I mean, Coach K, whom I played for, is inextricably linked to Duke now forever, but he didn't go to Duke. He went to West Point. Yeah. And Bob Knight in Indiana. Knight, he went to Ohio State. Stuff like that. John Wooden went to Purdue, and UCLA is what he's remembered for. So those, I think we'll see it, to answer your question, a mix of things. I do like the trend, and I think it is probably a short-term trend that we're seeing right now. Look, there aren't that many. If everybody goes to their alma mater, it's not going to be a ton of coaches that are going to be changing jobs. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if that's even workable from a numbers standpoint.
Hey, Jay, Tom Izzo, I appreciate you coming on with us. I got a quickie. Back in March, UCLA, Michigan State playing in the first four, and Tom Izzo at the half grabs Gabe Brown as he's going in to the locker room, grabs his jersey. People here in Michigan, even nationally, we're all over Tom Izzo. Hey, your time is done. You can't coach that way anymore. Obviously, we don't want to coach like Bobby Knight did in the end of his career. But guys like Tom Izzo, class guys like him, are we seeing the passing of the torch? And I know Braylon kind of asked you this. Do kids not want to be, disciplined like that?
Well, I mean, yes and no. First of all, with Tom Izzo, he's not only one of the great coaches in college basketball history, he's one of the great guys.
Yep.
So when that happened, there was a similar thing that happened, I think, with Aaron Henry during a tournament game. I believe it was a tournament game where sort of he got in his face, stuff like that.
Yep.
And I had said at the time that didn't bother me because Tom Izzo has a tremendous relationship with his players that's been built over time and a ton of time off the floor, and there's a great understanding there. There's an understanding on the part of the player's parents and families, and then people like us that know Izzo really well and know his relationship with his players. But I went on to say, and I believe that I would not recommend that to a younger coach. I do think times have changed, are changing. I don't believe that some of the methods that were used on us when we were all coming up, they may have been accepted at the time, but I'm not sure they were frankly acceptable. And there are certain things now, like I just don't think you have to do that in order to get through to a player. And coaches, and again, taking away from Izzo and just talking generally, because Tom Izzo is above reproach in my judgment in every way. But just generally talking, I talk to coaches a lot at my camp and then clinics that I do about the use of the term accountability. They'll talk about holding players accountable. How do we hold players accountable? And I'll say, well, and one of the things I say is the first thing in accountability is you have to define what it means for your players. And then as a coach, you have to hold yourself accountable first. Like as a coach, you're accountable for your behavior too, and you're accountable for your methods in that they're designed to reach the player and have for the best possible outcome. So if you were taught a certain way or believe a certain thing, you always have to be examining it to decide whether it's effective. Is it the most effective thing? And if it's not, then I think you should consider changing. And the way players are addressed now versus how they were in the past, I think that has to change. I mean, I can't speak to football. I never played football, but I saw it where coaches used to grab face masks and pull the players around by their face masks. They don't do that anymore, and they shouldn't because it's not right. And same thing with I just can't imagine unless you're showing a player how to do something to get him into a certain position, him or her. I don't see how you should be putting your hands on players. Is it that effective to grab somebody the jersey? Or I just don't believe it is, and I don't think it sends the right message to those outside your program. That's just my judgment. Reasonable minds can differ on that, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Just to, piggyback off what you said, I played inner-city Little League football in Detroit when I was, 10, 11 years old and 12 years old and 13 years old. And some of the stuff my coaches called me, if I was a father and I heard those things, it would be some smoke. It would be some smoke.
No doubt about it. Hey, Jay, we really appreciate your time. We can't thank you enough for doing this.
Yeah.
And we hope we can do it again sometime down the road. Thanks for your perspective. We're big fans of yours and
Absolutely.
continued
Yeah,
success.
I appreciate that.